Hello and welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And today we're going to do episode 192. And today is April the 9th. So here we are, April the 9th, 2025. And we continue to experience a world that is in incredible flux. It is shifting, it is moving. We are in the midst, I feel, of witnessing the biggest shakeup that this world has really experienced. I feel that every single one of us has incarnated many times. So we've been here and we've witnessed a lot of things, but we have not witnessed something quite like this. My understanding of the world has evolved through the years. It has evolved as I continue to expand my awareness. And, one of the charts that I have, not this one, but the one behind it, is that the more that we ascend in our awareness of who we are, the more we understand the cosmos, the more that we understand what God is. And part of the process of awakening is to get comfortable that we're not just who we think we are. We are not just this body. We're not these thoughts. We're not just our idea of ourselves and our idea of the world is that's not all that there is. So we have to get to a level of emotional maturity, number one, because if you don't feel safe in who you are, if you haven't done that inner work to feel grounded in a level of understanding that you are at least mature enough to recognize that you cannot possibly know it all, until you are at that level of emotional maturity, which means you've got some spiritual maturity under your belt as well, you can't really open up to discovering the more that is out there. It doesn't mean that you can't read books about it. It doesn't mean that you won't see movies and you might have, we all watched, or most of us watched, Star Wars. So we've been exposed to wars between beings of other stars, other galaxies. So our mind does get influenced with the expanded potentials and possibilities, but it is not until we are fully grounded in the truth of who we are that we can become comfortable enough. I'm going to move this over because I'm going to use this chart today. That we can become comfortable enough to really allow ourselves to humbly, and this is a key word, to humbly, meaning, no, I don't know it all. Please teach me. Please share with me. I am willing to hear of another way. I am willing to stay in a place of innocence, of not knowingness, and like a little child, allow my mind to be expanded by God, by source, by spirit, by whatever you want to call it. We need to give it permission to expand our awareness every single time we are in the I know, and this is the way it is, and this is how it's been done in my family, or this is how, men do it, or this is how women do it. While we are in that place of this is the way that it is, we're not open. We cannot be open when this is it. So today's conversation is a continuation for several weeks. We have been, of course, in A Course in Miracles, because that is one of my favorite uh, books to teach from, because it is such a beautiful compilation of far out ideas, like way out there. Like nothing that you see here means anything. None of this is real. To blow our minds a little bit, to stretch us out of the comfort of the known. And we are in chapter 3. We're looking at a specific section in chapter 3, which is section number 6. Is the title of it is Judgment and the Authority Problem. If we knew who we are, if we really truly knew who the author of us is, we wouldn't have judgment problems. But we have judgments. We have the problem that judgments bring about. When we're judging one another, we're separating each other. We're separating from one another. I'm better than, you're less than. This need to be right makes me the superior one, or the opposite is equally as arrogant. I am inferior. I've been hurt by you. You hurt me. I am right in my victimization. I cannot be better than because, my grandparents or great grandparents were slaves. So that's ruined my life. So I'm a victim of what you did to me. So you can be righteous as a victim and feel that you've been wronged, or you can be righteous as a bully and feel that you're right and they deserved whatever came to them. Either way, judgment keeps us in separation. And judgment is really truly the way that we can begin to see how we have an authority problem, how we don't understand the ultimate authority of all that is. And being able to break down what the Course is teaching us in a humble way, meaning be open-minded, come to these teachings prepared to learn. Come prepared to have your mind blown, meaning the solidity of the mind, the this is the way things are. Allow those things to be softened, to be pliable, create openings inside of those walls of righteousness that we all have. And I'll tell you, the longer I do this work, the more I am absolutely convinced that if we truly understood the nature of God, we wouldn't have any problems. We just absolutely wouldn't. But because we're confused about God, and we have been confused about God very deliberately, and there was a time they used to say, well, everybody did the best that they could with what they had. And yes, that's ultimately true, because anybody who does something that influences another in a negative way, they can only do the best that they can because they're operating at whatever level of consciousness they're at. And yet somebody operating in low consciousness, and the consciousness of greed and righteousness and overpowering somebody else, they don't have the ability to access God's information, because they're operating with their information and they're asserting that information on everybody else. So the people who thought that they were the authorities on religion and they were the authorities on the Bible, and this is the word of God and this is how it was, if there is no humbleness, which typically in righteousness there's no humbleness. I mean, those two are opposites. In righteousness there is arrogance, and in arrogance there's no room for humbleness, because if you're being arrogant, you need to be right and you know it all. And it's scary to consider, well, maybe I'm wrong. And if you're in a position that you think you're the leader, or you're in charge, or you've been given a task and your livelihood depends on you following what you've been told, well, you want to be right about it. You've got to complete it in such a way that you'll be rewarded for having done that task right. I mean, I've been around the planet, quite a while, 60 plus years. So I've had plenty of jobs where nobody ever that I knew got rewarded, got promoted, given raises for doing the work wrong. That never, I never experienced that. You had to always perform and do it right, and outdo what you did before and do it even righter the next time. So humanity has been operating under this need to be right as a survival, a form of survival, to get the raise, to graduate from school, to get the promotion, to be given the inheritance. The parent leaves more money to the one who's going to do it better and expand the business for the siblings, whatever. So there's always this reward if we do things right. The problem with doing things right is that there's always the opposite, which is wrong. And when we're operating in rights and wrongs, we're in judgment. That's just the nature of judgment. It's recognizing what is correct and what is not. And of course, what is correct, what is right gets rewarded, what is wrong gets punished. And nobody wants to be punished. No, no, even little children. in school, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they don't want to be wrong because being wrong typically went along with some kind of shame, some kind of embarrassment. So we have not been taught in schools, not in the homes either. Overall, we have not been taught that it is okay to make a mistake, and that to make a mistake just means that you're not right. And that's a good thing. You're not right means you cannot have all the information. And to not be right and be somebody who is open means that you're teachable, that you have the ability to expand. And creation is about expansion. As a matter of fact, the ego is all about contraction. And the more that I know, the more that I specialize, the more that I feel that I'm the expert in this one thing, the more contracted I am, because then the less of everything else that I can possibly be exposed to. So, as we have been looking at this for the last couple of weeks, we've been looking at how whenever we're judging somebody else, if you understand the principles of judgment, if you are judging somebody else, it's because there's something in you that is being projected. It's like that old saying, if you spot it, you got it. If you're pointing over there are three fingers pointing at you. So everything that we judge about another is a reflection of something within that has not been addressed. Once you address things within you, and you have recognized the authority problem that we had operated from, and you come to the authority of who you truly are, meaning you have cultivated a relationship with God, a relationship based on love, not a relationship based on fear, which is part of the authority problem, which then makes God a judgmental God because now God can punish you because you didn't do it right. And of course, if you did it wrong, you're going to go to hell. So we have mixed so much judgment and fear and righteousness with God. And of course, who wants to get close to a God that's going to constantly um, be looking at what you're doing and judging it? Because after all, religion also told us that we're sinners. And they're right because they're the authority. They're the closest ones to God because they wrote the books. So then we are the sinners and the bad ones. And what happens to those who didn't do it right? And all of us did it wrong because we're sinners. Well, you're going to go to hell. You're going to get punished. You're going to be, you're not going to be rewarded. So you're going to end up in punishment. And that's what we're all avoiding, wanting to avoid because we know that it's uncomfortable. We experienced that as children. And over time, every time we got punished, whether it was d dumped by a boyfriend or a girlfriend, whether we got punished because we got caught cheating in a test, whether we got punished because we didn't perform at work and we didn't get the promotion, we all know punishment and it never feels good. So in this world that has been operating by the ego is what runs the world that we see. This world operates in judgment, rights and wrongs. Somebody has to be right, somebody has to be wrong. And of course, that creates further separation from God. But the fastest way to discover judgment and to start the correcting process is to what you spot in somebody else is in you. So we have to humble ourselves enough to be open-minded and go, well, maybe there is another way of looking at this. Maybe instead of that person being so bad and me being their victim or me being the righteous one, maybe let me look at it differently. So everything about A Course in Miracles is an invitation to expand. It's an invitation to move out of being right about such limited information to expanding ourselves and being open and being curious. You know, one of the characteristics of a teacher of God is open-mindedness, being willing to be open to what else is there. That is such a high, very evolved way of looking at the world, very mature, spiritually, very mature, because only one who is no longer afraid can be open to what else is there. But if you're afraid, then you are in a state of needing to be right about protecting yourself and defending yourself because you believe you got to take care of you. God's not going to do it. God's waiting for you to die and send you to hell and take advantage of the your pain for the rest of your existence. Well, until we get comfortable that we are not a victims of anything. We're not a victim of the world we see, and we begin to do the work of discovering what is the truth of who I am. What is really the truth here? And we come to know God as God really is, not as the church tells us that God is, or different beliefs or whatever, but really come to have an actual relationship with God, a personal relationship with God, and begin to feel the movement of the energy of God within us. Not until we really understand God as God really is can we really open up to want to be led by this God, because the God that we knew about was a God of punishment. To be led by a God of love requires that we believe that we are worthy of receiving that love. So you can't be a victim and be open to being loved by God. Those things are very incompatible because they're frequencies. A frequency of victim: I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not special enough, I'm not wanted, I'm not valued, is incompatible with the frequency of, no, you are. Not only are you valuable, not only are you amazing and wonderful, but you have been creating your own experience. To accept that everything that I feel victimized by was my creation, your mind has to have been corrected in many ways, and the level of spiritual maturity has to be pretty high for you to begin to see that there is nothing outside of you that has power over you. Nothing. And that is, those things are very incompatible unless you do the work, and little by little you expand your awareness to come to get to know God. And we have to get to that place where we meet a frequency that allows us to experience God. And the fastest way to get there is through curiosity. It's just simply suspend knowing everything and going, wonder what else is there? What else could there be? So these are conversations about what else could there be. So if I'm not judging, and if everything is not right and wrong, then what else is there? So we went through understanding here that every time that we're judging, judgment always involves rejection, because we're rejecting the truth by needing to be righteous about whatever it is that we see somebody did or that we think that we're doing. So as we continue to move through these particular paragraphs, we move to understand that, it tells us in here, yes, it makes perfect sense that we are disheartened by the world that we see. A world where it appears to be so much chaos, so much pain, so much suffering, so much that is done to hurt one another, to hurt women and children, to hurt each other, to hurt neighbors. I mean, yes, in this world, when we don't know who we are and we're all operating in survival, and we think that we're not good enough, we think that we're going to end up in hell later on, we're all trying to do the best that we can to get by. And that world can only go so far. As a matter of fact, it's a world that is eventually going to fall under the weight of its own issues. So we are here witnessing, especially if we're doing the work of A Course in Miracles, we're training our mind to see everything very differently. And that's why I brought this chart, because the work of A Course in Miracles is to help us move to either looking at the world through the eyes of God or to look at the world through the eyes of ego. When we can keep things really simple, that ego does things a certain way, it is always going to be in fear. There is no way around it. Ego is the basis of fear because it's the original belief in separation from God. I'm separate from God. Oh no, I better take care of myself. That's scary. In this big old world, and you've got to take care of yourself, that's very scary. But when we cultivate a relationship with God and we realize God isn't everything we see, God is literally what powers everything, then our relationship with the world becomes a friendlier relationship, more collaborative. Okay, God, tell me what it is that I need to know. I'm open to you using anybody or any situation or anything to guide me. Now, we feel the world is a loving place. We feel that we're in collaboration and moving with guidance from a creative source that cares about us. And as the Course teaches us, God only has one purpose for us, and that's for us to be happy. So if we understand that we live in a world that is loving, and we look for the love everywhere, and we bring the love that we are to everything that we do, well, our experience is going to be very different. It's going to be a lot lighter. If we're operating in that the world is here to hurt me and I've got to protect myself from it, well, the experience is going to be a lot darker. It's going to be a lot denser. It's going to be about watching out for what's going to jump out at me next versus one whose alignment with God is, okay, all right, I'm watching what's going to come out to support me next. One is the world's happening to me, one is the world's happening for me. And both experiences are equally valid because when we perceive the world through the eyes of the ego and we're in judgment of the good and the bad and the right and the wrong, well, we're going to get a mixed bag of those experiences, and that's going to be our reality. Yes, we're right. The world is happening, to us, and we've got to be at the ready to navigate all of the challenges. Well, when you are experiencing life as no, the world is happening for me, and you're open in communication with God and you're waiting and hearing for guidance, then all of a sudden things begin to unfold for you. There is a flow that happens, and little by little we are bifurcating, we are shifting. There are those who are flowing with life, and then there are those who are fighting life because it's a dog eat dog out there. So that separation, if you will, is happening, although, and here's the crazy thing, it's happening in the mind of God, so nobody's really going anywhere. However, our experience is either that we're flowing with life or that we're fighting life. Either one is going to be valid because they're coming from a level of consciousness that is making that our reality. Whether we're aware of it or not does not matter. It is happening. None of us, uh, well, I shouldn't say none of us because I don't know that for a fact, but most of us do not understand the mechanics, the scientific mechanics of gravity. But we all understand that if we jump out of something, jump off the mountain, people go, what do they call that? Skydiving, um, paragliding, whatever, jump out of an airplane, you're coming down. We trust that that's going to happen, even though we may not necessarily know the mechanics of it. Speaking of mechanics, I don't know about combustion. I do not know about pistons or anything like that. I get in my car, I trust that it is going to work for me. I don't need to know the mechanics of it. I get in it and I turn the key. That's what I know. I do need to know that I got to have key. I need to have gas. I need to have oil. Other than those things, I am trusting a system that is going to work for me, and it does. I do my part and it does its part. I don't need to have a PhD in how cars work. That would just boggle my mind. Same thing with God. You don't need to know the quantum physics of it all, but if you have trust, you will be able to navigate with a guidance system that is going to allow you to maneuver what's happening in this world with ease and with peace and with joy, because those are the frequencies that are experienced when we allow God to be our guide. But that requires that we understand God as our authority. So let's go to paragraph 6. Paragraph 6 starts with God offers only mercy. Your words should reflect only mercy because that is what you have received and that is what you should give. We should extend to others what's been given to us. The God that we have to cultivate a relationship with is a God of love. It is not a wrathful God. It is not a punishing God. It is not a God that is going to take revenge upon us. We have been taught that by those who needed us to be conveniently subservient to the God that they were telling us that they had direct, power to, that the Pope knew, that the rabbi knew. So the God that so much of religion has taught us about is a God that is made in the image of man. The God that Course in Miracles wants us to understand is a God that made us in its image. Again, this is why we need to become humble. We need to find out, well, what is this God, that I am made in its image. So that instead of me projecting on God my own inadequacies, that I allow myself to receive what God really is. So, the course is teaching us right here. God offers only mercy. So if God offers only mercy, that means God is not looking to judge, is not looking to create fear in anybody. Is not going to tell us lies. Is not going to be jealous. So then a God of mercy is a God that is kind, that is compassionate, that is gentle. Can we begin the process of behaving that way? Well, if we get curious enough, well, what would my life look like if I was offering mercy to everybody? That is a way that we begin to move out of the righteousness of judgment. Because instead of being right and accusing somebody, oh, you cut me off and you're a terrible person, if I extend mercy, maybe they cut me off because they were in a hurry to get to the hospital. Maybe they cut me off because they were late for a very important appointment. Maybe they cut me off because they got disoriented and lost and weren't sure where their exit was. If we extend mercy, what begins to happen is inside of us, we can begin to feel the frequency of, of compassion, of kindness, of gentleness. That is closer to humility than the frequency of righteousness. They shouldn't have done that to me because now I'm right and I'm offended and I'm contracted and I'm small. There's no room for humility there. I made myself right and they're wrong. I created a distance between me and that other person. But if we take something like this and you put it somewhere on, on a sticky note in your house and you practice just this alone, God offers only mercy. And then you make the commitment to not deviate from that. And if you do, you just forgive yourself. You forgot for a moment. It's going to take time for us to practice and embody the truths of who we are, because it's taken a long time for us to practice and embody what is not true, that we're judgmental, that somehow I'm better than somebody else, or I can be offended by somebody else. So the mind has to be rewired. We got to create new neurological pathways that begin to activate in us the chemicals that allows us to feel at ease and at peace. And yes, God offers only mercy. God is nothing but love. So it can only offer mercy. If God, that is love at that frequency, was offering judgment, God would have to be down here in the low frequency as well. And that's not possible. Love cannot be judgmental. Now, the human love that we experience is very judgmental because our human love is based on conditions. It's conditional love, so it is judgmental. I love you, I like you, I'll be nice to you if you do this, that, or the other. But when God offers only unconditional love and God only offers mercy, is because God places no condition. It loves no matter what. So as we continue in sentence number 3, paragraph 6, justice is a temporary expedient or an attempt to teach you the meaning of mercy. It is judgmental only because you are capable of injustice. So we have set up a justice system and we determine, okay, you stole something from this person, you're the bad person, they're the victim because you took something from them. So we use this system because we believe in injustice. We believe the terrible thing that happened to this person. For thousands of years, we have used that system, and we call it, like I said, the justice system of somebody's going to be right and somebody's going to be wrong. There was the perpetrator and there was a victim. And we have participated in seeing people as being victimized by the actions of others. For the ego, that feeds right into its wheelhouse, because then it allows us to experience fear. Oh, we got to be afraid. We're going to be victimized. People are going to be hurt. There are people out there looking to take from others and what doesn't belong to them. So it allows us to experience the judgments and to need to put people away and to have punishments and to do all of the things that are consistent with what the ego needs to feel safe. Okay, take all the bad people and put them away. Now, if it was consistent like that, it would be one thing, but it's not consistent because we know, well, if you got money, if you have money, you can get away with murder. We all understand that our justice system is not about justice whatsoever, but it's the best that the ego can do because the ego operates in total opposition to what God is about, which is mercy. So instead of us humans having mercy on, yes, the person whose stuff was taken or who might have been hurt, but we also showed mercy to the one who committed the crime or stole whatever, and we let that person know, wait a second, you're a child of God. Why are you go around stealing things from people? Why are you go around hurting people? If we did the work of inquiry, if we got curious instead of being right about the wrong, bad thing that they did, and we begin to question, we would discover that hurt people hurt other people. That's the only way that it can possibly happen. And the reason you know that it is so is because what they did unto another, pointing the finger, you've got what I need, so I'm going to take it from you, comes from a place of, I don't have it in me. I don't have what I need. And if somebody is operating in lack, if somebody's operating in any kind of inadequacy, they don't know who they are, meaning they cannot possibly have a relationship with God and know that God offers only mercy, that God created us in its image to be whole and complete. So the system that in our righteousness uses the justice system to punish the bad people who did things to the victims, in perpetuating that system and needing to be right that that's the right way to do it, we do not create space for curiosity. We are going to go through a period, and it's already started, and it's only going to intensify, how we are going to see how the justice system in many ways was a facade for, we're going to keep everybody here, the low level people, the 99%, we're going to keep you guys busy thinking that we have a system of police and justice and whatever, jails for the bad people. But behind the scenes, what we have been, what's really happening is those who think that they're right, that they're the 1%, that they can get away with murder, that they nothing, they're the untouchables, have been running a system that perpetuates the 99% fighting each other, battling each other, who's right, who's wrong, who's going to go to jail, who's going to, we're going to get revenge on. Where is the mercy in any of that? Where is the mercy in the system that is always seeking to punish somebody else and always allows for some people to get away with murder? Well, those systems are showing themselves more and more and more to be totally and completely out of accord with God's mercy. So things have to come into our conscious awareness for us to begin to say, there has to be another way. And little by little by little, over the next couple of decades, humanity is going to see everything that has perpetuated the ego's world and has kept it going, has kept it alive and well for as a distraction for us to do the work that really is required here. And that is to come within and find out, who am I as God created me, and who is God that created me. So as we move through these lessons, it is, I want to get to a section here that's really important that I want to highlight so that we can understand what the real problem is that humanity is facing, and we have to address it. Paragraph number 7. I have spoken of different symptoms, and at that level, there is almost endless variation. There is, however, only one cause for all of them, the authority problem. So we got lots of symptoms. We got the sick people, we've got the poor people, we've got the hungry people, we've got the homeless people, lots of symptoms. All the beings that, or all of the ways that we perpetuate the suffering of humanity, because when the ego is in charge, Some win, some lose. And we have become comfortable with the losers. We have become comfortable with homelessness and hunger and human trafficking and child exploitation. We've become comfortable with that. We have accepted that that happens in this world. Well, that is only possible because we are not living inside of the mercy that God has called us to acknowledge as the truth of who we are. So we have an authority problem. We are not listening to the authority that created us, that authored us. We are listening to the ego that is always operating from this idea of separation of haves and have-nots, the rights and the wrongs, the ones that are the 1% and the 99%. So we have bought into that separation and that inequality. And if we think that that's just the way that it is, we are not being curious about another way. The other way is to begin to look at that there's only one cause for all of the problems. All of the problems that the ego has created have one cause, and that's the authority problem. This is the root of all evil. This is what it says in sentence number 3, paragraph 7. Every symptom the ego makes involves a contradiction in terms because the mind is split between the ego and the Holy Spirit, so that whatever the ego makes is incomplete and contradictory. This untenable position is a result of the authority problem, which, because it accepts the one inconceivable thought as its premise, can produce only ideas that are inconceivable. Okay, bottom line there. Our ego believes this is the one thought that is inconceivable, that we're separate from God. And when we believe that we're separate from God, then we project onto others. Why? Because the finger that's pointing out there has 3 coming back to me. You spot it, you got it. You're separate from me. So I am separate from my own truth. I cannot know who I am. I don't know who authored me if I think that God would have no mercy on me and created me and cast me on this planet where there's so much, terrible stuff happening. And I've got to fend for myself because there's the good and the bad and the right and the wrong. And I got to try and be on the right side and avoid the wrong side. We have spent a lifetime, every one of us, believing that we're separate from another, being taught incorrectly, and again deliberately, because it keeps us ignorant, that God is outside of us. And if God is outside of us, then I'm separate from God and I am separate from each and every one of you. This is that one inconceivable thought. We have accepted the one inconceivable thought that we're separate. And inside of that inconceivable thought, it produces ideas that I'm separate from you. And if you've got what I want, then I can take it from you. I can hurt you. I can abuse you. I can keep all the food for me, but not for you. I'm going to feed my family, not yours, because we're separate. So we allow for homelessness because, well, you're not my brother or my father or my sister, so I'll take care of mine. We have allowed for sexual exploitation of children. Well, it's not my kid. Oh, yeah, I see it on the milk carton and I know that that child is missing, but, well, I got my little family safe and protected over here because I'm doing it right. I went to school and I got a degree and I got a job and I pay my bills. I'm doing my life right. And, bad things happen to good people. We have bought into all of these crazy ideas that because we're not connected to one another, we're separate from one another. We have permitted for humanity to not operate with God's mercy because we don't even know. We don't have too many examples of that level of mercy being shown to us. The best teacher was Jesus. 2,000 years ago, came to teach us those things. And one of the wild things about the teachings of Jesus is when you look at the Bible, you look at the New Testament, none of those people that wrote about Jesus were with Jesus. actually knew him and spent time with him. These stories were written by people about Jesus. I think that there was maybe one there that was around in Jesus's time, but he was a child in Jesus's time. And as he got older, then he was able to write about Jesus, but it was always hearsay. And it's contradictory. There are things that Jesus spoke of and taught, and some of these things have been found in other teachings, other manuscripts that were found or and scripted on papyrus, on leather, on rock, things that were found later on that shows that Jesus was very consistent with his message, teaching that God was love, that God is a loving God, that God is not a God of punishment, that if we learn to love God, if we learn to open up to the love of God, we could not help but love our neighbor as we begin to love ourselves. Because when we are operating in judgment and in protecting ourselves, we give ourselves permission to do things that are not nice to one another. But we are doing it the right way because that's what we've been taught is how we should do things. So much of what's happening in the world today is a total uprising. From the depths of our souls, there's a cry for truth. There's a desire for doing the right thing. And so many people with a deep desire to do the right thing are doing things that are not loving, are doing things that are very judgmental and with so much pride. So much, we're watching what's happening out there in the world right now with, we've been divided into two political parties pretty much the world over, the conservatives and the liberals. And somehow the liberals have been made to believe that they care more about people, that they care more about one another, that we care about the planet and we care about the marginalized people. And so they bought into this idea that women need to be liberated. So we got the women's right, that people of different sexual orientations need to be liberated. So we've got the LGBTQ LMNOP. I can't keep up with all those letters. Um, Divided into groups and marginalized, and we got to take care of these oppressed people. You know, when we're told that we got to watch out for the oppressed people, who's telling us that? Is it the oppressed people who are telling us, let's watch out for each other? Or is it those who are not oppressed who are funding the stories that there are people who are oppressed? If we stopped, again, this is why it requires an incredible amount of humility to get curious. Let me ask questions. Let me really find out. That this last political season that we just went through, I was witnessing, watching this side over here, this liberal side that said that they cared about the African Americans and they cared about the women and they cared about the sexually oppressed or gender. Again, that's just not my world. So the languaging sometimes is difficult for me to come up with, but in general, we were told that these people were going to support each other because they took care of each other. And we started watching people the African Americans who came over here to the conservative side. No, don't tell me that I'm oppressed. The females who came over here, no, I'm going to vote for the conservative side because don't tell me that I'm a victim. Don't tell me that I'm not strong enough because I'm a woman. Don't tell me that I can succeed because I happen to be female. Many in the LGBTQ that came over here and said, no, we're not going to participate in grooming children. So as you watch those who've been, and I'm going to use the word because it's the appropriate word, brainwashed into believing that they're less than how God created them, that there's something wrong with them, that there's something marginalized in them. When we feed to people that there's something wrong with you, of course, out of fear, we want to take care of each other. But when you begin to see the reality that you are being used to perpetuate something that maintains people in a low frequency, you begin to see you got to move over to the other side. The other side happens to be a side that's called conservative, And of course, you can give these blue and red and Republican and Democrat or Labor Party or this party, but it's mindset. There is a mindset in the more conservative movement that comes closer to wanting to know what God is all about, to accepting that God created us with a level of power, with a level of creativity, with a level of freedom that is more attempting to preserve that which God created. Now, do they fully understand that God is a God of mercy? Probably not. A lot of the groups on the conservative side, um, or the people in those groups, want revenge over the ones who did them wrong, because there's still a mindset of I'm right, you're wrong. Now, yes, this might be a little higher frequency because it's accepting more of God's goodness, but it's still projecting revenge on the other side. So we are witnessing a world that has been divided deliberately, that is maintained in a specific level of ignorance deliberately, that is being utilized for emotional reasons deliberately, until we take a stand, which the Course in Miracles says, have a little willingness to see, okay, there's got to be another way. Not only is there another way here, but this doesn't mean that this is the only or right way. There is a way in the middle. Jesus came to teach this to us 2,000 years ago. And again, with A Course in Miracles in the last 50, 60 years, this was channeled in the 70s, so over 50 years ago, that there is a way, and that is a way of coming to know the truth of who we are. To move to the place where we know the truth of who we are is to begin to stop thinking that we know everything, is to acknowledge that there has to be more than what I can possibly know. And if we got honest with ourselves and we really acknowledge that no one person can possibly know everything, then we could humble ourselves enough to recognize that maybe I could be wrong about a lot of the stuff that I've been holding on to. Maybe I am mistaken. Maybe there really truly is something totally different than what I have been thinking is the right way. That requires an incredible amount of spiritual maturity, a willingness to acknowledge, even if it's just for a couple of minutes a day in your own home, I really don't know how anything works. I really do not know what keeps this planet going. I really do not know what God is all about. And we just humbled ourselves, sat for a few minutes in quiet contemplation with a sincere desire, God, show me the way. Show me your way. Show me you. I want to know you. I want to know the authority of my existence, because I did not create myself. When we humble ourselves, we come to the place of realizing I could not have created myself. So, what created me? And then we go to, oh, mom and dad. Well, mom and dad didn't create themselves. So what created them? Oh, grandparents. And you keep going further and further and further back. And before we had the first two beings who had sex and started the procreation process, before those two had sex, who made them? If we can go to the place that we recognize that God created every single one of us, and that through our desire to experience separation, to experience ourselves as other than God, we created this 3D world. And there's nothing wrong with that, because God has only mercy and doesn't punish any of us. But God is waiting for us to come to the place that we recognize, I don't want to continue to do things all by myself. I don't want to continue to operate with a limited sense of awareness, with a limited sense of knowledge. And we humble ourselves enough to allow God space within us. And actually, that's not even an accurate thing, because God's already in us. You know, the kingdom of heaven is already within. So what powers this physical vessel is pure God, is pure consciousness, is pure life. If we could be humble enough to just allow ourselves to experience what God is, we would feel incredible love. because we would feel God's mercy. We would feel mercy for us. We would feel the sense of just complete compassion and forgiveness for all of our mistakes. We didn't know what we didn't know. But it is time for us to get curious and begin to move out of operating in this low frequency of haves and have-nots and fear and judgment and revenge and all of the things that yes, there's nothing wrong with that. It is part of the third dimension. But do you want better? Do you want things to get easier? Do you want things to be more joyful? Do you want to experience your purpose, which is to be happy? You got to rise to a different frequency. It's like if you want the penthouse view, you can't stay in the basement. And there's nothing wrong with being in the basement, but you're not going to get the penthouse view. So you got to do the work of moving up that escalator or the elevator or the stairs, however you're going to get there. That's the spiritual journey of moving from believing that we are separate from God and experiencing this inconceivable thought that we're separate and doing the work to come to know ourselves as God created us so that we can begin to feel the mercy of God. Because when we begin to feel the mercy of God, then we can begin to extend that mercy to one another. The world that we are looking to co-create, Course in Miracles calls it the happy dream. To be able to experience that happy dream, we have to be willing to sit and practice what does mercy look like. And we're going to have to go through a period. Yes, right now we are beginning to see all of the dysfunctional things about the injustice system that we've been operating in. We are pulling back the veil to see behind the curtain of who's been running the world. The 1% that's been running the world has been taking advantage of the other 99% because they know that if they can train our minds to believe that we're separate from God and that we're not good enough, that we'll be compliant. We'll do whatever we're told to do out of fear of being in trouble or not doing life right. Then we are controllable. So we have to see that that's been happening in order for us to decide, okay, are we prepared to do things differently? Are we prepared to humble ourselves enough and go, okay, this is not working for me anymore. What is it that I prefer? Until we humble ourselves enough and decide, not my will, not my will anymore. My will hasn't got me a whole lot better things. I want to follow God's will. But before I follow God's will, I need to know what God's will is. What is God's will for me? And as it says in here, God has only mercy for us. And our words should only reflect mercy because that is what you have received and that's what we should give. So there's going to be a group of us that is going to have to take a stand. That as the curtain is being pulled, as the veil is being removed, and we can see those who have been the puppeteers manipulating humanity to stay in a state of ignorance, we need to have mercy on them. We need to be the ones who forgive them because we are only going to ascend into the fifth dimension of consciousness, meaning into that happy dream, if we treat others how God treats us. We have to have mercy on them. We have to recognize they took advantage of a system that was ripe for being taken advantage of. Well, at that level of consciousness, what else could they do? They did exactly what they were supposed to do, which was to make things so that they benefited them and not the rest. So we now need to do something that benefits us. And the only thing that's going to benefit us is number one, to accept the mercy from God, to recognize that that is all God is going to offer us. And if God's not going to punish us, let's not project punishment on another. Let's project on the other what we have received, which is mercy. This is why learning to forgive is so important, such an important piece of A Course in Miracles. God offers us only mercy. We're only going to get out of this incredible insanity that the ego has created, that the ego has made out of this world, if we extend that mercy upon another. Knowing who created us is key. God is a God of love, a God of mercy. Let's begin to use that mercy on ourselves forgive ourselves. We did not know what we did not know. And then let's begin to extend that on others. Seek not revenge on your brothers and sisters as they are being exposed for the things that they have done, the atrocious things at the level of form. We can call them atrocious. But if we understand truly where we are and how God created us, nothing is, nothing can change the souls, the beings that we are as God created us. We have got to accept who we are in that eternal way and let ourselves receive God's mercy so that we can then become the bringers of that mercy to this world. Because what the world needs now more than anything is mercy for all of the unmerciful things that have been done. And we cannot ascend if we lower our frequency. We can only ascend if we remain in that high frequency. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you picked up a nugget from these shares. And today, let's see, we did paragraph 6 and 7, and this will be episode 192. Please come back again and see us next week. Today again is April the 9th, and in 1st of May, I'm going to be unveiling my membership program, and I'm super excited about that. It's going to have 2 tiers, and because I just love sharing this information, and frankly, when I was in Atlanta and I used to teach regularly at the different centers. It was so much fun. I love teaching. I love sharing the truth that continues to expand my awareness of who I am, that continues to bring more mercy into my life, more clarity, more peace, more joy. I want to share more of that. So I'm going to have 2 tiers for those who just strictly want to get only some Course in Miracles classes, which I'm going to start doing on a weekly basis. And then a once or every other week Q&A to ask any questions and have access to those kinds of conversations where I can answer questions. And then for those who want to go way deeper, so still be able to do the Course in Miracles classes, but go into in depth, how do we apply this into our everyday lives? The group coaching, the Q&A. So I'm going to be offering those 2 different tiers again for the people who just want a little bit and people who want to go way in depth. These Wednesday transmissions are going to continue because I have been told that this is just something that I need to do. This is like my way of channeling, my way of bringing information from God specifically, as taught through the Course in Miracles, so people have a structure that they can put these teachings with. And the Course in Miracles is a course in mind training. It's an individual, personal uh, course that you can take yourself through to help move you out of egoic thinking into God thinking, into thinking with the Holy Spirit, out of being a judgmental person into one that is merciful as God created us. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you all so much. Any comments or questions? Unmute yourself. Otherwise, we will meet again next week. All right. Love you all. Bye-bye.